Hello everyone. I think I have another short-ish topic today, so I'm just going to continue the demo where we left off with the map hazards video. And I want to talk about spy disguises. So I did talk somewhat recently about how spy can be a kind of support class, because he has more supporting tools than, for example, sniper, which is the other quote-unquote support class that is also a combat class, like non-medic, which is obviously support. Yeah, I figured I'd talk a bit more about disguises and how you might use and abuse them in a sixes setting. So for starters, as far as which disguise is best for spy, there's obviously trade-offs. And I think there's more obvious trade-offs in sixes than it might be in casual settings. Obviously, people talk all the time about which spy disguises are best, and I'm sure I've seen those videos, but don't really remember them too well. But of course, one thing that a lot of casual spies talk about is shifting the hitbox, because of course, you know, your hitbox as a spy is independent of what you're disguised as. So if you disguise as a scout, for instance, it's going to be harder for a sniper to imagine where your imaginary head is, which, on the face of it, I'm not so sure, because if you're even playing against a player that's good enough to be headshotting you at a range like that, then they probably know about the hitboxes and can account for it. And also keep in mind that when you're disguised as a spy, you don't get faster speeds. You can very obviously see from a scout disguise that it's not a scout because they're moving too slowly. But in a casual setting, I mean, like pyros, engineers, even enemy spies, like all of these are quote-unquote seamless disguises in the sense that you can't just tell at a moment's notice that that's a disguise. And you have to use context clues about like where they are, what they're doing, and etc. However, in a sixes setting, that's not really the case. You can either disguise as a medic, which there's only one medic, and oftentimes you're trying to kill the medic, so very obvious disguise there. Or you disguise as a scout, which again, we've already talked about the issues there, because you are very obviously disguised if you're moving, to anyone who's paying even a little bit of attention. Or you can disguise as a soldier or a demo, which in both cases you move slower. You move slower than you normally move, and you move slower than a medic that you are trying to backstab a lot of the time. So there are flaws in every single... Oh, well, and then, excuse me, and then every other class. I suppose, unless they're running an engineer on last, in which case you could do that. But every other class that you could disguise as, you know, it's unlikely that that team even has that class, right? So, you know, a lot of the time, you are going to be very obvious in that regard, because it's like, oh, why is there a heavy here? Unironically, though, a friend of mine, when watching people play spy in sixes, or stream it rather, in the chat every time they just like, disguise as heavy. And it's shocking the amount of time that it works. Like, some teams just don't really question stuff. So maybe, yeah, disguising as off classes is totally fine. Which is very funny, because on the face of it, that would be like the worst disguise. Very obvious that a team doesn't have a heavy, and you move the slowest out of anyone. But no, sometimes it works. Which I'll talk about in a bit, actually. So yeah, all the different disguises in a sixes setting do have some flaw, generally speaking. So as a result, most of the time, spies will disguise as a scout, just because you get to move as fast as you can. And usually your disguise isn't really fooling people, at least not for a prolonged period of time. So you're just kind of relying more on not being seen. And just like, you know, spies will talk about in a casual setting, your disguise is more so just trying to buy you that fraction of a second, where, you know, the other team, or the player that you're trying to stab or whatever, their neurons don't immediately fire at the fact that you're red instead of blue, right? And don't think much further than that. And by the time they realize, it's too late. So that's definitely the case in sixes as well. Although disguises can definitely fool players on occasion. Because, I mean, first and foremost, spies are just not that common in competitive play. So you just don't really see them a lot of the time, and you know your sort of spy radar is not on so much. And in fact, you know, if I play casual after a long time of or after a break of not playing it for a while, I kind of need to recalibrate my like spy checking and actually, you know, realize that there are definitely people out there to backstab me. So yeah, there's definitely some element of Sixes players are not in the spy checking or thinking about spies so often, which can make Disguises a little bit better. But yeah, that's definitely an aspect of it. Now, one thing I do want to talk about is not just Disguises as a way to backstab people, but also Disguises as a utility tool. So as I've talked about multiple times, the fact that Spy Disguises prioritize a player on that class means that you can use Spy's Disguise as a way to off-class check. Because of course, I mean the big ones being a Sniper and a Spy. Those are those classes that if they properly surprise you, then they might get some value, might kill your medic, kill a player, something like that. So a big part of making Sniper and Spy less effective is knowing about them before they can make their play. And off-class checking is a big part of that. Now, of course, I've already talked about, you know, the effective way to off-class check. You can, of course, just immediately tell if, you know, they have any weapons unlocked, or weapons equipped, rather. Or if you have the 3D HUD player model, you can see if they have any cosmetics. But failing that, if they are just running default cosmetics and weapons, then redisguising multiple times to the same class can usually give you an indicator if you get the same name over and over again, that someone's on that class. So being able to off-class check is a really useful tool with Spy. But also, even in the case of, you know, making plays on Spy into the other team's last, for instance, then you can still get some utility out of your disguise. A big one that I'm a big fan of is disguising as a friendly, particularly a friendly sniper, because, you know, sniper tends to force certain positionings from a team, and it's also pretty uncommon for a team to run a sniper and a spy, because if the other team gets wind of that, then you are screwed. Like with a capital S, because you're effectively down two combat classes, two classes that can actually take fights and do stuff. And being down two players, that's stuff that teams push off of. So you are much less equipped to do anything if you are stuck with a sniper and a spy and the other team knows it. So, as a result, if you're showing sniper because you're disguised as a friendly sniper, and they think you have a sniper, then you're going to be... it's less likely that they think you have a spy. And as a result, the spy play is more likely to work. So that can be quite nice. Funnily enough, there's some clip out there where a friend of mine rolls out heavy. Like, they're just playing heavy for... this was in a pug scrim, so it was definitely less serious. And I was a spy, and I disguised as my friendly heavy, so there's just two heavies with the exact same cosmetics walking around together. And someone spotted me and actually could have killed me, because, of course, only 125 HP. But they just left because, you know, it's a heavy. You don't want to be taking a fight with a heavy like that. And I ended up, like, getting a stab or something. So that was very funny. But, yeah, the utility of disguising as friendlies can be nice. Now, of course, you could potentially disguise as, like, a friendly medic or demo to maybe confuse opponents a little bit. But if they see both of you at the same time, then it's very obvious that you have a spy, which you don't generally want to do. However, even disguising as friendly combat classes like a scout or a soldier can be useful as far as when you're actually rolling out, because you can't usually roll out completely cloaked. Even on Invis Watch, which you have a much longer time being invisible and can like route to health packs and whatnot to stay invisible for long periods of time, generally you want to roll out uncloaked and then, you know, only get behind while cloaked. So then you have, you know, as much cloak as you need in order to, you know, get in position and pick your timing and whatnot, and you have more access to better timings as a result. when you have more of a cloak buffer. But that being said, of course, you know, if you don't want to be cloaked while you're rolling out and you don't want to get discovered, then why be disguised as an opponent, which would immediately tell that you have a spy, when you could just be disguised as a scout or a soldier or something, and then they see you, and then their comm is just, oh, there's a soldier on 2 or something. You know, something easy like that. So there's definitely a lot of depth to spy disguises, and yeah, there's some interesting decisions to be made about what classes you disguise as and how you can get utility out of disguises, even though it's, of course, a pretty limited use class in competitive. Yeah, I suppose we can wrap up here since the demo ended. Yeah, spy disguises is interesting. There's definitely some theory to them. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Oh man, my game is frozen. Oh no. Okay, we're good. All right, goodbye.